Well, that's what it's about. Like, what do we
Yeah.
do to face it? Because we know that there's still racism, discrimination, macro and micro aggressions, and there's a generational trauma, historical trauma. There's things that we face. So it's kind of like, how do we experience joy with that?
Mm.
You may hear people say the angry Black man, the angry Black woman, because we're thinking about the oppression that we've had or that our ancestors had.
Right.
So people are literally living through this. So my goal is to, say that we can still experience joy and get beyond that, even despite that it's happening, because why live a life in anger? And then that's just going to affect our mental health. Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and joy while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. Enjoy, and today I bring to you episode 51, Emancipation of the Mind. And I have a very special guest here with me, Dr. Cynthia Turner Graham. Thank you for being here.
I am so glad to be here with you.
Woohoo! So tell the listeners who you are.
Yes. Well, you heard my name. It is Cynthia Turner Graham. I'm a psychiatrist. I practiced psychiatry for almost 40 years, if you can believe that. May
Wow.
not have been in the world, I'm not sure. But anyway.
That is my age.
Yeah. So yeah. And right now, I live in the Atlanta area. I am not doing clinical work, but I'm working to promote civic engagement in the Black community. We've got a lot at stake for
Yes,
this
we
year.
do.
And we just need to build on what Stacey Abrams has done
Mm-hmm.
to register folks to vote. But in addition, my focus is on encouraging medical providers of all disciplines to vote
Mm-hmm.
using this QR code that allows you in the consulting room to
Mm-hmm.
help a patient
Mm-hmm.
check their registration status and their voting location. And
Great.
included um, in every evaluation and follow up. They'll tell you, I did one thing, and
Mm-hmm.
well, did you get read? Oh gosh, doc, I meant to.
Mm-hmm.
But so civic health evaluations need to be a part of
Mm-hmm. It's like
every
another vital sign. Did you vote?
absolutely, absolutely. And if all doctors did that, just think, we could have a representative government. Wouldn't that be something? We'd hardly know what to do with.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
how well is that going? Getting that
It's
civic.
going well. The
Uh-huh.
organization is called Vote ER.
Oh, love
Y-
it.
Yes, yes. And there are about 600 facilities, healthcare facilities, and medical schools within the United States who have a program.
Mm-hmm.
Starting one at Morehouse School of Medicine, Emory has one. But there are campaigns that we run in order to educate physicians who, by the
Mm.
way, vote at a lower percentage rate than the general population.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we've got some work to do. But anyway, that's what I want to do. I want to focus on empowering people
Yes,
to
empowerment.
really claim the power that's theirs.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for doing that and being that advocate because we need
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
had I had written as many prescriptions as I wanted
Mhm.
to treat social determinants of health.
Mm.
And if people could have a different social situation,
Mhm.
they would half of them probably wouldn't even need the medication.
Exactly.
And I said, well, as long as I'm here, I'm cooperating with the system, writing these prescriptions, maybe I'm part of the problem. Let me just try to step
Mm.
away. I've done my part in clinical work, and I want to shift my focus to
Right.
community empowerment.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone about how I do a lot of undiagnosing and unprescribing, even though
Mhm.
we can prescribe, it's not like the first thing that I do because there's so much
Absolutely.
other things going on, like the social determinants of health. Right.
Mhm. That is
Yeah.
really true. Yeah.
So you're also the immediate past president of the Black Psychiatrists of America. You want to talk
I
about that
am.
organization?
Oh, sure. Black Psychiatrists of America was founded in 1969,
Mhm.
shortly, well, during the period when all those assassinations were happening in the,
Mm.
civil rights movement.
Mhm.
And the psychiatrists who were part of the American Psychiatric Association became concerned that the issues related to Black people and our emotional and mental health were not being addressed or taken seriously at all.
Mhm.
And so they presented, a group of Black psychiatrists presented to the Board of Trustees
Mhm.
a list of demands.
Mm.
And so the trustees listened politely. Thank you so very much. And they did absolutely nothing.
Oh my goodness.
So Black Psychiatrists of America was born because we
Gosh.
recognized several things. Not only did our patients need to have the benefits of psychiatric research,
Mhm.
but we needed to have access to more Black doctors. So we also support and recruit um, college students and medical students to go into psychiatry.
That's
Then
awesome.
we mentor them. We're growing and want to do more of that actually. So, and we educate and support one another because, we're out
Mhm.
here in the trenches, absorbing the stress of all of the things that we see and the patient's energy that we are trying to address. It's
Mhm.
a load. In
Mhm.
addition to dealing with the systems in which we have to work, which
Exactly.
will always have the patient's best interest as a priority.
Yeah.
So we have to support, encourage,
Each
each other.
other. Yeah, BPA has been amazing. I know when I would go to the APA conferences or to Child Psych ACAP conferences, even just the Black caucuses have been great, for us to have each other. Our
Yeah.
patients need to see themselves in us and their providers, and we need to have that network. So it's definitely important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Thankful
is.
for
We're
BPA.
growing. But do you know in the United States, the last count said there were around 1,000 practicing Black psychiatrists in America.
Wow, that seems low.
Hello. Yes. And some percentage of those are not practicing
Oh, wow.
too.
Do we
So,
know how that compares to the white psychiatrists? Like what number they have?
oh yeah, they have, well, I'm not sure. I know the number in the American Psychiatric Association, but I think there's a lot more than that. I know there's about 30,000 members, but I'm not.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. And in just 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I think back in Cincinnati, I didn't see so many of myself, but then here in Atlanta, I see a lot. So to me, I feel like there's a lot, but
No, this is an exceptional place in many, 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 many ways.
exactly.
Yes.
Everybody's
But it's a
Black.
wonderful thing to
Mhm.
be in a place and space. I mean, the energy is just different here.
Yeah, it really
You know,
is.
it is, and there's a lot of positive things going on. There are a lot of creative people doing innovative things to improve our plight as a
Mhm.
people, improve
Mhm.
our access to business dollars, entrepreneurship opportunities. I mean, it's just wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, as we're talking about our race and how we need a community and network, we are getting into Juneteenth. And we all know Juneteenth, we finally got that as a holiday, at least for most people. I know my clinic's not open on that day. So, that is
Mhm,
great. It's a holiday. Tell me
mhm,
what Juneteenth means to you as we get into emancipation of the mind. There's been the emancipation about 200 years ago but there's still the fact that we have this hold on our minds, this generational trauma, there's historical
mhm.
trauma. But just before we get into all that, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Well, I was raised in Kansas. I was born in Tennessee, but raised in Kansas. And so, Juneteenth actually celebrated the announcement of the end of slavery to Black Americans in Texas. Like it was almost 2 years later.
Mm.
Yes. It was a long time. So they
Uh,
stayed in slavery. They continued to be exploited as slaves. And I'm not sure.
Oh.
Yeah. And so Juneteenth celebrates the announcement in Texas so that the Black people could know what time it really was.
Mhm.
And so, for me, being in Kansas, it felt real close to me.
Yeah.
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 And so it always has had a meaning. Before, it was a holiday. We celebrated it in Kansas, where I was raised. Um,
A
but
lot of
I
people
often
did.
think about those first days after emancipation. What did my people do?
What was that
They
like?
had no money. They had no access to
Yeah.
real jobs. They could be further exploited as sharecroppers, but
Mhm.
that was about the beginning and end of it. For many,
Mhm.
most, I would say the majority, really.
Mhm.
We don't know how many died just of starvation,
Mhm.
privation. There were the jails and prisons filled up
Yep. Of course.
because of people were called vagrants because they were on the street with nothing to do, but what was
Wow.
there to do? And so that's actually when I think American policing grew out of keeping the Black people under control
That's
after
how it
the
started. Of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this whole industrial complex, this penal industrial complex is just
Mhm.
outrageous. But it started back then.
It started back then.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that getting out of that hold of the physical slavery and getting into the world of freedom is like how right now, when you've been in prison for 20, 30 years and you get released, you can't get a job, you don't have a place to live, you don't know how to reintegrate at all. So I can
Mhm.
imagine for years and years them feeling that way. And like you said, most of them probably died. And maybe some of them asked to stay where they were enslaved just so they can continue to have a place to stay and just be willing to continue to work. And
Yeah,
just as these years go on and now we're down the line, we still have this hold on ourselves mentally where we feel enslaved in certain areas of our lives. So,
that's really true. Yeah.
yeah.
I've been reading this. I think it's a short book, but it's called The Creation of Capitalism
Mm.
and how the Western European world decided back in feudal times
Mhm.
that it was better to separate people, create something called class,
Mhm.
and exploit them for their labor to create wealth for, the small number of those who.
Right.
But prior to that time, before capitalism was developed, we were they were in Europe an agrarian society primarily, and they shared everything. They shared everything. They made sure no one was hungry, made sure people had the supplies they needed to keep their farms going,
Mhm.
shared wood and other resources, and everybody was okay. But at
Ah, nice.
some point,
Yeah.
there was a few people who said, "Hmm, let's just create some boundaries." There were really no clear boundary lines between properties even because
Yeah.
they helped each other cultivate and
Yeah.
harvest.
Maybe they were running out of supplies. That's usually when that boundary has to happen.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, um, the elite figured out how well that worked for them,
Mhm.
and they continued to iterate over on that
Yeah.
over the years, and capitalism was born out of it.
Yeah.
And that mindset is still very much alive.
Mhm.
Yeah, we see it everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
We do. So, anyway, that is something that I've been curious about. How in the world did we get here?
Mhm.
Our society, its organization is such a mess, but we're not going to get too, Have
Too
you?
much into to that. I
Oh,
know
yeah,
it's and well, that's what it's about. Like, what do we
yeah,
do to face it? Because we know that there's still racism, discrimination, macro and micro aggressions, and there's a generational trauma, historical trauma. There's things that we face. So it's kind of like, how do we experience joy with that?
mm,
You may hear people say the angry black man, the angry black woman, because we're thinking about the oppression that we've had or that our ancestors had.
right,
So people are literally living through this. So my goal is to, say that we can still experience joy and get beyond that, even despite that
yeah,
it's happening, because
yeah,
why live a life in anger? And then that's just going to affect our mental health. But
right.
with that said, what is generational trauma and historical trauma? Are those the same thing?
Well, I would say they're a little bit different. Generational trauma is the trauma experienced from one generation to the other.
Mm-hmm.
In history, there are many things that impact a person's life
Mm-hmm.
that causes trauma. That would be the historical trauma. But generational trauma, I think, is a subset of
Right.
historic. That's how I would think about it. Yeah.
Right.
And I think there is a lot in the midst of the madness to celebrate amongst our people.
Yeah.
I mean, we are innovative, creative, intelligent, actually brilliant. You know,
Resilience.
I mean, when you think about what we were able to accomplish within that short time of Reconstruction,
Mm-hmm.
right after slavery, and we had people in Congress, we had senators,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs making money.
Mm-hmm.
They had to shut all that down. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it takes some ingenuity and some chutzpah and special something to accomplish the things that we accomplished and continue to. There was a little hiccup there
Yeah.
when Reconstruction abruptly ended, and we were intimidated, and our communities burned, and our
Yeah.
the voting structure changed so
Mm-hmm.
that we were not allowed to vote, but
Mm.
initially we were.
Really? And then it went
Yeah,
back.
they went back. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Reconstruction ended. They said, "Oh, no, 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 no. These people
Yeah.
are making too much progress. We need to shut this down."
So when you were practicing in psychiatry, did you see, the legacies of the segregation and slavery that we're talking about manifesting in our patients' mental health? Did you see it
Oh,
to address
oh,
it?
absolutely. I mean, like you said earlier, patients who come to you who are suffering, they don't
Mhm.
always need medication.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, what they need is a deeper self-understanding of how they got where they are
Yeah.
and the influence that previous generations had on that,
Mhm.
and any suffering that that are experiencing in the moment that brought them to you.
Mhm.
So it's important, really, to make sure that we just don't provide pat answers and pills for things that really just need some self-understanding and some wisdom and some skills to really overcome. And that's what we do in psychiatry. We help people develop a deeper understanding, insight,
Yeah.
so that they can make different choices. It is in
Mhm.
those different choices that then we can build ourselves back and claim the strength that is ours.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, we're disconnected from it. Yeah. So,
Right. So when it
yeah.
comes to being trauma informed and culturally competent, culturally humble, as far as our providers, as we know that there's many, many, many psychiatrists that don't look like us. As far as them, how could we talk to them or mentor them on how to be trauma informed and really thinking about and acknowledging that historical trauma or generational trauma is still affecting their patients? How can they implement that?
Sure. Well, I think primarily through education.
Hmm.
I think those of us who have studied intergenerational trauma, that presentations be made at, other organizations' events other than our own, so that we can spread the word. Now, what
Mhm.
we also know is that our colleagues are a product of the larger society.
Mhm.
They have a lot of resistances even to hearing what we have to say
Mhm.
in terms of the importance of understanding those other variables that could contribute to
Mhm.
a person's suffering and their psychiatric conditions also. I mean, I think there's more and more research that has established that uh, the intergenerational trauma and depression
Mhm.
is a burden that Blacks carry, uh,
Mhm.
and not just from what happens to you,
Mhm.
but from what has happened to your parents and to their parents and their parents.
Yeah, we carry
Because
that weight.
we carry that weight in multiple ways. That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Some of what is inherited comes from modeling behavior that we see in our home that's maladaptive,
Mm.
that's not healthy,
Mm.
doesn't
Yep.
really solve problems, but it's what we've always done. We just need to keep doing it that way, even if it is unhealthy and deleterious to, our functioning.
Yeah.
So we deal with uh, epigenetic factors and physiologic factors.
Mhm.
Mothers who are carrying children who are under stress,
Mhm.
when those children are
Yeah.
born,
Yep.
often have a genetic predisposition for a number of mental health disorders.
Mhm.
Yes.
You just start your life off already.
Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Already at a disadvantage.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just critical that these kinds of things be explored with patients in order to help them reach their maximum potential and get rid of that weight
Mhm.
that is carried that drives a lot of this mental and emotional distress.
Exactly. You mentioned the maladaptive ways that people might deal with their hurt or their trauma or things that
Mm.
they may witness in the home. What are some examples of that that people might do?
Oh, sure. Well, there's several at several levels this occurs. I would
Mhm.
say that uh, the many people who've been traumatized or had modeling of maladaptive strategies are victims of abuse,
Yeah.
neglect,
Mhm.
uh, parents who really don't know a whole lot about healthy ways of disciplining children,
Mhm.
produce the desired change, and not
Mhm.
create uh, baby twins who are acting just like they are. When
Mhm.
those children grow up, they will do what their parents do, and we don't. We want to break those cycles.
Mhm.
And so I just think we just need to take a multi-pronged approach and do all we can to help affirm what our patients experience. Um, I think that's one of the major differences between seeing people who look like us
Mhm.
versus those who don't.
Exactly.
We Yeah, because there's a lot of doubt, and I'm sure you've seen patients come to you after they've seen another psychiatrist who just didn't believe what they were saying, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we do is affirm patients and open them up to explore the various factors that contribute to
Mhm.
their distress and pain.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is a lot
That's
of
fair.
what we do. And then, of course, there are the times when medication's needed, but not always.
Therapy, therapy, therapy. I say
Mhm,
that all the time. Now, you mentioned to take a little small pivot, you basically alluded to spanking and whooping, different things that we might resort to because our parents did it and their parents did it and their parents did it and going all the way back to slavery. I mean, what do you think about like spanking and whooping children? Obviously, we are against it as a whole, as far as the ACAP, the child
mhm,
psychiatrists, and the
mhm.
AAP, the pediatricians. Did that somehow come from slavery? Why are we
You know what?
resorting to that?
I would say Yes, but in addition, you know, the consequences for our children misbehaving in public
Mm-hmm.
cost you your life.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 20s and
Mm-hmm.
30s and, the latter part of the 19th century, yeah. I mean, and so you rather your child live than worry about what's gonna happen with him getting a spanking.
Right.
Let's preserve your life, baby.
Yeah.
So it made logical sense, but it was also modeled from these extremely aggressive and horrific punishments
Yeah.
we were subjected to. Now, I think it really is motivated from trying to protect your child. Because if they go out and I mean, we
Mm.
know Emmett Till, right?
Mm. Mm.
He came from Chicago feeling his oats and decided he was gonna just stretch out a little bit and say something to somebody, but nobody knows what he really said or did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and his mother was worried about that because she knew that he had a sense of self-confidence. Someone would call it arrogance, but it was a kind of confidence that really was not appreciated in the
Yeah.
South.
Correct. 'Cause you're supposed to be humble and quiet. Yes, sir.
That's right. Look down and step off the
Mm-hmm.
sidewalk and all that
Mhm.
sort of thing. So spanking in that scenario makes sense, but we're in a different time in history
Yeah, we
now.
don't have to be that way. Yeah.
And I think the idea that you can talk to children. Children are so much brighter than we
It
ever,
seems that way, right?
right? Yeah. And so we can talk to them about things that we are concerned about that we observe in them
Mhm.
and go in some depth with it. But if we didn't experience that, it's hard to know as a parent how to do it. So you go,
Correct. So
yeah,
unlearning that and learning
yeah.
some strategies to replace that. And I ask parents who resort to spanking, did it work? They say no. Okay. So let's try some new strategies. No one usually says yes, it worked.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get their
So
attention, but you get a whole lot of other things. You're planting some seeds in your children you don't even understand in terms of,
mhm.
what they're internalizing in their relationship with you as their parent,
Mhm.
what they will see as they grow into adulthood as acceptable ways of uh, meting out punishment to their own children and, their grandchildren.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a serious thing, and we do not want to emulate the larger culture that really has interwoven a
Mhm.
lot of control measures through aggression and, well, not spanking, but, incarceration and all kinds
Mhm.
of things that, happen to us. We don't want to emulate what they're doing, not only to
Right.
us, but even, what they do with their own children.
Mhm.
Our children have a set of needs that, we can't depend on the white world to really tell us
Yeah.
about in depth and how to be the best parent to your Black children. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and that is the case where there are white parents who adopt black children. So there's that too. And I've even had a white parent who adopted a black child ask me about their hair. How do I deal with their hair and just certain cultural things and just recognizing that, they can't provide the cultural experience that they feel like they might need. But then some families they do just fine
Yes.
when that's
Yes,
the
it's true.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I thought about something, and I think my husband would be okay for me to say because he tells a lot of people this. So he's Colombian. He immigrated when he was age 2. So he grew up in
Okay.
New York. But when
Mm,
you were talking about things we might do to protect our kids, I thought about him because he was 2, and they literally crossed the border with my his mom, my
mm,
mother-in-law, and his older sister who was 4 at the time. And there was
mhm.
a point where they were in the coyote and they had to be really, really, really quiet, and he started to cry. And so she covered his mouth, so he wouldn't cry. But he said, yeah, she almost killed me. Obviously, that's not like punishment, but she
Sure.
was just like, hey, we'll get killed. You got to be quiet. So
Mm,
it's just, it's, it sucks, you know, the things that, you know, we have to go through just for, to protect our kids and protect ourselves and, you know, to get to freedom.
mhm.
But yeah, it's so interesting. Now,
Yeah.
how do we help our patients deal with this kind of trauma? Because they're already dealing with trauma that they're experiencing today. Then there's a trauma that they see in TV, you know, that vicarious trauma of seeing
Oh,
the
yes.
police brutality and things that way. And then on top of the previous oppression that just continues to sit through our minds, how do we help our patients?
Sure. Well, the way I approached it, it was multiple prongs. Number one, if they need medication, whatever the cause of their difficulty, I want to make sure we optimize their ability to be present with a therapeutic process
Sure. Yeah.
if they need it. Okay, so that would be one place to start. And so making that judgment early in the course of treatment sometimes is important. Not for everyone, but sometimes people come to you and they have a problem, but they don't have access to their cognitive capacities to even engage in therapy until they get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
So
true.
that would be one.
Yeah.
Then I think it's important to just create a safe emotional space for them where they
Mm-hmm.
know they can say anything. I would just always add no hitting and no spitting. But other than that, everything's permissible,
Right.
right?
Meaning like the emotions they're allowed to have in therapy.
That's right, that's right. So
Gotcha.
they need to know
Good.
that they need to know that it is safe. They can say what they want
Yep.
to, even things that, they would direct against you. I don't sometimes, they bring their lives into the consulting room, and they will relate to you the way they relate to other people in their lives, and
Yep.
and so we
Transference.
may catch some things that are but we have to use those things
Mm-hmm.
therapeutically to help them reflect on what happened, um, how that might relate to what happens in their other relationships in their life, and just really be present. I think there is something about the gift of presence that is good for the soul.
Mm-hmm.
There's not very many safe places in life where people can go and have that kind of cocoon
Mm-hmm.
feeling. That's what it's like in therapy or when you see a psychiatrist, as after you have developed a positive therapeutic relationship.
Mm-hmm. That's really
And,
good.
and I learned that, oh my gosh, I left Maryland and moved to Atlanta. Those patients just did not want to let go. They made all these excuses.
Uh,
One said, "Well, I'm just gonna stop taking my medicine, and
oh
you
my gosh.
have to." I mean, like. But anyway, that's
It's a
neither here.
choice. It's a choice.
It is a choice, but uh, but those are the major ways. I think educating people just about psychic functioning
Mm-hmm.
overall, cause and effect
Mm-hmm.
between behavior and consequences. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
those are disconnected. People are confused about, well, why in the world did this happen? Well, let's just look at the things that preceded that.
Yeah.
There may be some answers there.
Yeah.
And, so you want to educate people
Mm-hmm.
uh, just about the basic, you know, ways that behavior is changed and that their internal environments are impacted.
Right.
Yes. So there
Yes.
could be suffering in your life, in your relationships, but there's a lot of subjective internal suffering that
Mm-hmm.
we want to help them understand because many people are so disconnected from it, they don't even know
Exactly.
depth of what it is that they're experiencing.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, I mentioned emancipation of the mind because it's like we
Mhm,
have to free our mind. We have this hold, we keep re-traumatizing ourselves
mhm,
at times when it comes to like continuing to go down that rabbit hole of negativity because
mhm,
with Journey to Joy, I talk about a lot with our positive thoughts, positive affirmations, gratitude. And
Yeah.
some of my patients, they don't want to hear that. It's too fluffy. What do you mean? I don't believe that. Why should I say that? Well, because it works. You have to continue to say that and then replace it with the negativity. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, it's important.
And sometimes when they don't get it, at least my approach was talk a little bit longer.
Hmm.
What you will find is that they will eventually see the connections between their suffering and what it is they have used as a pattern and a way of coping.
Hmm.
Sometimes they don't see themselves as contributing to the
Yes,
yeah,
correct. They're in their
yes,
own way.
yes, that's right. But you can't be judgy or
Correct.
judgmental.
Not at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to just listen, hear it, and accept what they tell you as their truth.
Hmm.
Even when it's kind of outlandish, you don't question. That's
Correct.
their reality. And I need to help them understand if that reality is based in truth and reality, or if it's based on, programming from maladaptive uh, behaviors of their own, or
Hmm.
ones that they've inherited within their family or
Hmm.
community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good about the judgment-free zone because when we
Mhm.
talk about stigma, Black people not wanting to go see a provider, that's one of the things they're afraid they're going to be judged. There's a lot of fears or distrust that they may have with
Mhm.
providers, whether they're Black or white. So it's important for us providers to have that, safe space for them, and obviously not to do judgment on them. And I say that all the time. When a patient might say, "Well, I'm not gonna lie, this happened. I did this. I didn't take my medication." I'm just like, thank you for being open and honest about it, because now we
Yeah.
can really work. Because I'm not here to judge.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so critical.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
but trust in that relationship is where all the action is. You got to have that
Hmm.
as a prerequisite in order to help people feel safe enough to
Trust.
open. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we end out here in the concept of joy, of course, there's a heavy topic when it comes to talking about generational trauma, historical trauma, all these things with race and discrimination. Is joy possible? Can we do it?
You
Can we
know what?
experience it?
I really believe we can. There's a lot of um like I say, survival, thrival adaptations that our people have made in order to find true joy. I would say for us as a people, a lot of times that's found in religious settings,
Hmm.
in churches, but that's not the only place. I think it's important, though, to cultivate some practices that really help to um, take away some of the stress that is present in your body that
Hmm.
cause emotional and mental distress.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I believe, absolutely, but it really does take a level of self-discipline and searching really to find a way for you to be able to actively cultivate joy for yourself. What works for one person may not work for another, but it is
Yourself.
something you have to actively pursue. It is not out there waiting to fall out of the sky into your
No.
the world is not, and our society is not organized to create an environment where you will thrive in a place of from a place of joy.
Hmm.
You got to know that. So
Right.
whatever you are able to get, you will seek it out for yourself.
There it is. Make the choice, be persistent,
Right.
search
Yeah,
for it, reflect.
that's right. I actually meditate every morning.
That's great. In the morning, it's good to set your pace of
Oh,
your day.
absolutely. Yes. Get up at 5:30 in the morning and just make a
Ooh,
slow
early
start on the
too.
day. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Before looking at your phone and your notifications, I imagine.
Well, most of the time, that has gotten a whole lot better, I have to say. I've become more conscious, like you were talking earlier about AI popping up everywhere, trying to invite you to spend some more money on something that you don't even need,
Exactly.
you know? Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on as we talk about this heavy topic, but it's Juneteenth. We're going to celebrate. We're going to reflect,
Yes.
but we're going to celebrate.
Yes, 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 yes. We have so much to celebrate. And I had the privilege, this week, James Lawson passed away.
Mm.
I don't know if you know who James Lawson is. He was the architect of the freedom rides and the
Mm.
nonviolent social action that started in Nashville, Tennessee. He was fired from Vanderbilt back in the 60s, I think,
Mhm.
when sit-ins were happening, and he was the one helping the students practice not reacting when they were being attacked and
Oh, wow.
treated. Yeah. So he studied with Gandhi, and like I said, he was one of the major architects of the civil rights movement. So I'm on the board of American Baptist College in Nashville, Tennessee,
Okay.
where John Lewis graduated from college.
Uh-huh.
And that is a site where a lot of this happened. So when I joined the
Mm.
board there, I said, I want to meet James Lawson.
Mhm.
I was in California. I got to meet him and I asked him, I said, what
Yeah.
should we be focusing on at American Baptist College?
Mhm.
And you know what he said? He said, the, the single most variable that allowed us to be successful in the movement and really change our society,
Mhm.
that we emulated the life of Christ. That's
Mm. Selflessness.
that's right. Selflessness, forgiveness, really just not harboring, you know, uh, things that logically we might harbor a lot of anger and bitterness and
Right.
kind of the natural response, but that's another one of those choices.
Yeah, it goes back to the fruit of the spirit, self-control, kindness,
There you
gentleness,
go.
love, patience,
That's
goodness.
it. That's it.
Yeah. Mhm.
That is what he said, and I'll just never forget that. It was, and he told me, he said, American Baptist College just needs more Jesus. That's what.
Mm.
If there's one
American
piece of
Baptist
advice I
College.
could give them, yeah, right. They,
Okay.
they got some things mixed up.
Sometimes we need to prescribe that, but if
Yeah,
I have Christian patients, I definitely talk about Christianity and scripture, things
absolutely.
like that, because
Yes, yes, yes.
awesome. I won't take too much more of your time. I appreciate you being here and talking to us about all of your wisdom with this heavy subject.
Yeah.
So just thank you so much.